Okay, so welcome. This is actually part 2 of tips for audio and video presentation skills, setting yourself up for success. So the 4 of us actually presented part 1, I guess in the spring. And I'll share with any of you who didn't attend that, the recording, which like I said, is on our YouTube channel, and also some of the resources that we shared during that webinar. But we're all from the Human Services Department. I'm Jessie Budzinski. I'm the Assistant Department Chair. Professor Rebecca Haight is a full-time faculty member in the Undergraduate Human Services Department. Dr. Courtney Leifridge is a full-time faculty member also in the Undergraduate Department. And Dr. Deanne Simon is a full-time faculty member in the Graduate Department. So very well represented here. And I know that you guys, if you want to put in the chat which department you're in, I know this is open to anybody, so it may be that we have students from other departments as well. But the reason why we decided to do this, number one, we feel like it's really important to be able to share with you all some of the tips that we have found in recording audio and video. But we're also doing it because our department has implemented audio and video throughout all of our courses, both undergrad and grad. So our discussion boards have video components, our assignments have video components, our journals have video components. So we really feel like it's important to provide students with as much resources and tips as we can to be successful when they're creating videos for those assignments in their courses. So why did we do it to begin with? And I'll just do this briefly because I know we talked about it the last time. Awesome. Thanks, Ray. So one of the things that we have found in adding video into our classrooms is that it increases engagement. And not only are we increasing engagement between the instructor and the students, but we're also increasing engagement, obviously, between students. So you guys get to see each other, you get to hear each other's voices. It's much more engaging than just a text-based discussion board when you can see each other and have those conversations in kind of a more natural type of setting. So you're increasing engagement while also practicing skills that you need to be successful in human services, psychology, really whatever field that you're going into. We have also found that these videos increase feelings of belonging in the classroom. We know that text-based discussion boards can feel very monotonous and at times boring. So being able to submit your responses as a video or audio and really showing your true self helps not only us, hopefully helps you guys as students too, to feel more like you belong in the classroom community. Research also shows that relationships and the relationships that you build in the classroom really leads to higher quality learning and education. So there's a connection between all of these things. And then Dr. Simon's going to talk about this, but the other thing that really drives us with this is that we know that once you graduate and you start working in the field, you need to have had practiced the skills while you're in the classroom with us. So it's more than just writing about what you're going to do when you graduate. You actually need to also be practicing and doing those things. So practicing talking to a client, practicing presenting information, practicing advocating for a community. So those are all things that we want to give you guys practice with. And our goal as a department is to create welcoming, engaging, and inclusive classrooms where students can comfortably practice the skills that they need to be career ready. So really, it's giving you guys the space to practice, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, so that when you go into the workforce, you're ready. So I'm going to put in the chat the link to part 1 and to 10 tips that we've created. And sorry, I'm admitting people as they're jumping in here. So that you guys can review those things if you missed part 1. And I am going to pass the mic to Dr. Simon.
Oh, you're muted.
And there you go. That's like a lesson right there on the importance of watching your mute. And I actually thought about that before I started talking and then just didn't look at it. But I'm going to be talking about why is this important. So why do we do this? And one of the things that we have seen is by embedding either audio or video discussions, assignments in the classroom, that students may be better prepared for moving into their chosen field. And so I know, Ray, you said, I see that you said psychology. So this will definitely apply to psychology as well. And I went recently to an online teaching conference to present on a similar topic. And I talked with a variety of different people from different fields, legal, emergency services, that kind of thing. And they were talking about the presentation in the field and how they were also required to do that, and how they found audio and video assignments in the classroom to be very beneficial for their students. And so it is applicable outside of human services. And so one of the first things that we know is that professional identity formation is a skill. We are forming our professional identity, and part of that is talking and presenting can be very common in multiple fields. And so I'm going to use human services, and I know this would probably apply in psychology as well. But there are several different things you might present to clients. So like in an educational setting, for example, like parent education classes, that type of thing. Stress management classes would be another example. So you might be actually presenting to clients. You might be presenting to colleagues. There have been numerous times where where I have, in a multidisciplinary team meeting, like I have several different colleagues coming in from different departments, and we're all working with the same client, and I have to present a case to them. Or if I'm going to be referring a client, I've got to sort of summarize that case. I've got to present the highlighting factors of that case. And so that's one way. And then you might be presenting to other organizations, like maybe through networking or community-based events, that type of thing, where if you are working for a nonprofit agency, you might actually need to present on your agency, what they can do, what their resources are, to other, community agencies, so that you can exchange that information. And so that a lot of the things that we do with our audio and video assignments can help form those skills that are necessary to do that. Another thing is to practice readiness. And so one of the things that I think is important, especially when it comes to presenting, is to be able to speak in a concise way. So we want to be able to efficiently and effectively summarize information and be able to communicate that effectively. And so audio and video assignments give us a wonderful opportunity to practice that. So we have some video discussion boards where, especially if it's a case study discussion board where you're sort of summarizing the main issues, that might be something. We've got in the graduate department, we've actually got several assignments where you are, like, we've got one specifically that is a case assignment where you're staffing a case. You're actually putting forth that information like you would in a career environment, where you are actually talking about the case to a supposed audience, in terms of like an agency audience. And so that is directly linked with being able to practice those skills. And, obviously with like department meetings and things like that, if you have supervision, if you're part of a supervision group, or if you have a department meeting and you're supposed to give an update, typically, at least in human services, maybe psychology, and legal, I know is one as well, that you're having to give that information to your colleagues, and, in the form of an update or a summary or what's needed, or even like a triage situation, like a crisis situation. And so being able to discuss that information in a concise way is very important. As Jesse mentioned earlier, inclusion is also very important. We know that everybody learns differently and everybody communicates differently. And so with inclusion, writing for some people might be difficult. It might be very hard for them to really get their thoughts accurately onto paper, so to speak, or discussion boards, that kind of thing. And so audio and video assignments give us an opportunity to express differently, so we can express our thoughts and our ideas in a more stream of consciousness, and even provide more detail, I think. As I know, for example, when I'm responding on video in our discussion boards, I tend to offer more detail in a video reply than I do in a text reply, because and sometimes I might get off topic a little bit and kind of go down a different way, but and add details that maybe I definitely wouldn't have added, wouldn't have typed out. But I think that's really good, because I think you can definitely get some different ideas and communicate differently in a way that maybe you wouldn't before that. And so I personally really enjoy video discussion boards, just because I feel like I get to get a real sense of the ideas that the student is presenting, and I get to respond in a way that's a little bit different as well. And so that different way of communicating, I think, is really helpful. And then another area that I'm very passionate about, this area, is wellness. And so we know that audio and video assignments can offer opportunities for reflection, which in turn increases potentially wellness. And you might think to yourself, what is that? How does that, correlate? And so especially with human services, psychology, but really any career field, wellness, there's a lot of self-reflection, I think, that goes into wellness, and especially burnout prevention. And so audio and video assignments give us an opportunity to really have some reflection. We have numerous video journals in our graduate program, and some of those are more skills focused, but some of them are also very self-reflective. And so, for example, we've got a video journal on burnout and challenges in the field. And so students talk about what are some challenges that you have experienced in the field, if you're already working in the field, or you feel like you might experience in the field, and how is that going to potentially lead to burnout? And maybe what would be some strategies that you would employ to address that, to challenge that level of stress. And I was actually just grading some of those today, and everybody has such wonderful ideas. And I had several students that really went, we have like a time range, but really they were so into the self-reflection piece of that they just kept going. And I loved it, because I think that self-reflection is so important to wellness, to the field, and to just really thinking about how would we handle these situations if we're put there, if we're put into a stressful environment, what might we do? And really, how do we feel about that? And so the self-reflection piece of that, I think, is really helpful, just in terms of wellness. So just kind of continuing this, audio and video assignments have the potential to improve social presence in the classroom. I know we talked about that here at the very beginning. And so obviously we get to see each other, we get to hear each other, but I also think it helps students get more comfortable and feel a part of the class. And I will say, as an instructor, I actually think it does that for me as well. Every time, especially when we start a new term, when I get on the video introduction board, because our introduction boards are video, when I get on the introduction board and I get to see students and hear them, from the first day of class, I feel like I have a much better connection to them. And I have gotten feedback from students that feel the same way. They really feel like by watching the video introduction of their classmates, that they really are they're more present in the classroom. They feel, they feel more connected. And so I do think it helps, especially when you're first coming into a program, to recognize this is a community. This is what we want. We want a community. We're not alone. We're not out there, just learning by ourselves. We're part of something. We're part of a class, and we get to see our classmates. We get to hear them. And, that's important for that connection piece. Again, it also helps, for students who may struggle to write or even who have language barriers. So if you've got, if someone is maybe English is a second language and writing is hard for them, then audio and video assignments offer an opportunity to express themselves in a different way. I think it allows for more creativity just because you get to discuss things that maybe and talk about things that maybe you would not necessarily write down. And I think, when we think about being creative, we'll think about one thing and then that'll lead us to another thought that maybe we wouldn't have had otherwise. And so some of these assignments that we do really offer opportunities to be very creative. We also have assignments that have that audio component or that video component within a PowerPoint. And so students are literally presenting, but also talking in their own video at the same time. And there's a lot of creativity that can go into that. So, and I think it actually, and the feedback that I've gotten sort of confirms this, but it makes it a little bit more fun, because when you just write papers, sometimes that might get a little bit tedious. And so just having an opportunity to do something different, I think is very helpful. And then finally, you can just practice those skills that will be needed in the field. One of the things that, at least in my area, I'm a counselor. And so in my area that we saw when COVID hit is that we in the field, the counselors in the field were really unprepared for the video component that happened during COVID, that we had to move to online in a variety of different ways. And a lot of those skills are still, or not skills, but a lot of those services are still online in some capacity. And there were many, many people in the field that had never really been on video and hadn't utilized it before. And so there was a huge learning curve. And so we in this department, we really feel, because so many of those services are still offered, we really feel like it's important that students have those skills so that if it's needed when you go out into the field and you get that job, that you're able to do that, because a lot of that is still going on right now. So just some ideas on why it's important. And I am going to pass it to Rebecca. Professor Height.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Simon. One thing that a lot of students, at least in my courses, because usually in the ones that I teach, it's the first time doing any kind of video or audio discussion or assignment, they often will tell me how anxious they are and they're terrified, they're scared, and there's just so many fears that come up with it. So I did want to bring up that point in this part of the webinar here. And specifically, I wanted to talk about self-confidence and competence. They sound like very similar terms and they can lead to very similar outcomes, but they are a little bit different. So self-confidence is about our belief in ourselves, that we believe we can do this. Competence is about having the necessary knowledge and skill set to perform that task. I do recommend working on that competence first, because then self-confidence will come in naturally second. So for example, if you are given a presentation, become really familiar with that topic that you want to present on. And the more familiar you are with that, the more research that you do and the more practice that you do, you will feel more competent. You will feel like, okay, I have the knowledge, I have the tools, I know I can present this. So in turn, that's where self-confidence will come in with your belief system. On the other way, it can be kind of hard to align those two items. I did include a graph below here, as you can see in the right-hand corner, where it's showing that the more confidence that we have, the better our performance is, or in this case, the better our presentation is. But it does start to drop off at a certain point, which means there is such a thing as being overly confident. If we're too confident, we do see that performance kind of comes down. And the reason for that is mostly because if we're overly confident, we do not typically prepare as much. We kind of wing it. And then some of the, we might stutter or stumble over a word. Some of those things can come out. And I wanted to share that with everyone. So I hope that takes off the pressure of feeling like you have to be the most confident person in order to do a presentation or even an audio or video discussion board, because I promise you do not. I'm actually not the most confident person, and I talk all the time. So you do not have to have all the confidence in the world. You can still give a great presentation. Similar along the lines of that self-confidence, what affects that a lot is stress. And I have something here called the stress curve, which looks very similar to that self-confidence and performance curve. And it's very similar in that some areas of stress, or some amounts of stress, I should say, is actually beneficial. If we don't have any stress, then usually we don't have any motivation to reach our goals, or to even set goals, or to turn in assignments, or to try that presentation. So don't be afraid of some amounts of stress. Try to change your mindset around that, and just know that it's our body trying to gear us up to complete that task. I think switching our mindset towards that can really, really help to cope with stress that we feel. But with that said, there is always that point where it's way too much stress. And I do think a lot of us live in that area, unfortunately. And that would be like the the orange and red zones that you see here. And that's where you're feeling that burnout. You could have panic attacks here, that anxiety. We're really lacking that self-confidence here, fatigue. All of those symptoms is where we feel too much stress. So the number one thing I do recommend, get to know yourself. The relationship with you will be the best relationship you have. So really get to know yourself, become aware what does trigger you, what causes some of that stress. For example, for me, I love caffeine. I could drink it all day long, but it does make me jittery. It makes me anxious. And that's not true for everyone. Sometimes caffeine makes people really sleepy and tired, but not for me. So if I have to give a presentation, I know I should probably limit my caffeine intake on those days at least. So just become like really aware, what changes do we need to make in our environment to keep us in those better zones of stress. Other things that can cause stress more specific to given presentations is that we often fear of what others are going to think about us. Are they going to judge us about how we sound, how we look? We also tend to have a perfectionist attitude where we feel like we have to get everything right. I even remember as a faculty member, my first time recording a video discussion, and I re-recorded that so many times. I mean, it took me forever because I always found something wrong with it. I didn't like the way I looked over here. I didn't like how I sounded. And I realized that was actually fueling my stress even more. Every time I re-recorded that, my stress increased and then increased, and it just creates this cycle. So we do kind of have to let some of that go to know we don't want to achieve perfectionism. We just want to show up as ourselves, and that's wonderful. You are great how you show up. A lot of us also fear of the unknown. That's very normal. We don't know what's going to happen or what's going to come about from our presentation. But I do challenge you to try to change your mindset around that too. Instead of identifying that as I'm terrified of what's going to happen, reframe that by saying, I'm excited for this opportunity. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to see what happens. I know it kind of sounds silly, but if you even say that out loud, even if nobody's in the room, it does help. It really, really helps to change that mindset. And then the other part that I want you to focus on are your physical symptoms. So I know thus far I've talked a lot about our mindset, changing those thoughts, but our physical symptoms, what's your body telling you? Most of the time we are very tense. Our face is tense, our jaw is tense, our shoulders are tense. We hold tension in a lot of places. We might even have like chest pain or a racing heart. Really get in touch and in tune with what is your body saying. And we want to do things to relax our physical selves first. If we are telling ourselves, I got this, I have all the competence, I have all the knowledge, but you're really tense and your heart's racing, those two things, our mind and body, they're going to misfire. They're not really getting on the same wavelength. So relax your body, do some deep breaths, physically focus on relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your jaw, relaxing your face. Get yourself down to a really, really good calm level, and then work on that mindset. And I have found that to really help with me too, is working on the physical and then our mindset, and then they're both communicating and in sync. And relating more to the mindset, I did want to bring up something called the self-fulfilling prophecy. I know many have heard of this term, and it is more complex than what I'm going to describe it tonight for time's sake, but in a simple way, it really is just like that our beliefs and our thoughts, or how we will predict something to happen, that it will come true. So basically the labels we put on ourselves or a situation, it will come true. So for example, if we're going into a presentation and we are really anxious about that and we tell ourselves, this is going to go horribly, I'm super, super nervous, and you keep focusing on how nervous you are, that's going to tell your mind and brain and body, okay, let's be nervous. And we are going to have the symptoms of being nervous. And then we probably will stutter and stumble a little bit. We'll finish out and then we'll say to ourselves, yep, it happened. You know, I was right the whole time. And then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You were right about what you predicted. So if we start to change that by doing what I just talked about with your mindset and body, and go in and say, it's going to be okay. I may stumble, but I got this. I'm going to get through it. It's going to be okay. Then we're not focused on those nerves, and then we can have a better label or outcome. With the mindset, I do want to mention really quickly, when we're replacing those thoughts, you know, when you have like a negative thought and we want to stop that and maybe replace it with something that's more helpful, I will say you want that thought to be genuine and accurate. So if you genuinely have a lot of fears around public speaking, you don't have to say things like, I'm going to ace this, or I'm going to be perfect, or you don't have to say things that don't feel genuine to you, because then that really won't work. You have to believe yourself. So it's okay to just say things like, yeah, I am a little afraid of this, but I'm going to get through it, and you will get through it. Or remember, say things like, this is an opportunity to learn. One motto that I love to follow is I will tell myself, do it afraid, or do it anxious, or do it uncomfortable, but just do it anyway. And that helps me. It's a very simple phrase, and it just kind of gives me that motivation of like, it's going to be okay. I can do this. Sorry for coughing. So have like a little motto that you can follow that would resonate with you. The big thing is around avoidance. We don't want to avoid. We don't want to not turn in that assignment or not to do that presentation, because avoidance will fuel that anxiety and fear. It will just make it worse. Most of the things I already talked about are on this slide. A couple things that I didn't mention. One was around radical acceptance. That's a big one. And that's really just accepting you for who you are. We can still have goals. So we don't want this to be confused with, I'm okay with where I'm at and I don't need goals for myself, but it's accepting yourself along the way. And one personal example that I share with even my students is when I was a kid, I had a really severe speech impediment. And when I was in my undergrad years, I had a public speaking course, and I was so anxious about that speech impediment coming through, and it did all the time. It was like my worst class. It was a nightmare for me, and I was so focused on that. And then finally, I had a light bulb moment, of course, when the course ends, where I told myself, you know what, that's who I am. If it comes out, it comes out. I'm going to work on this, but it's who I am. And once I accepted that, the symptoms almost diminished like completely. So that radical acceptance can really, really help with that. A couple other things here, visualization can help. Just close your eyes, picture yourself given the presentation that you've dreamt of, and visualize that a few times. That will really help prime your brain for what you would like to see to happen. Creating a support system is really helpful. Even though all of these things can be helpful, we are humans and we do get stuck in our own minds sometimes. So we do feel anxious, and sometimes we just need someone to lift us up, encourage us, or point out all the things that we have overcome, or, you know, just to give us that confidence boost. And then I want to leave you with, be kind to yourself. We are usually so kind to other people. Give that same kindness to yourself. And I will go ahead and pass it off to Jessie.
Thank you. That was great, Professor Haight. And I did just want to piggyback off of a couple things you said really quickly, is that I know in our department, we are not looking for perfection with these audio or video presentations. So we, you know, that's not the expectation. It's really more for you to get more comfortable, to practice, to make progress. And there's opportunities in all of our classes to submit audio and video in a practice type of format. So like our introduction discussion boards aren't graded. So that's a great way to practice. We have some video journals or video assignments. So those are just seen by the professor. So again, that's another way to kind of practice without your peers also seeing it like they do in the discussion board. So there's lots of opportunities to practice all the things that Professor Haight was sharing with you guys, which is great. This slide just talks about some brainstorming techniques. I think one of the things that students sometimes ask is, or think about is, how can I set myself up to make this recording? Maybe there's all this information and I don't, we don't want you guys to feel like you have to read it. And if you're doing a presentation, it's going to come across better if you're not reading it, if it feels more natural. And that's what we want you to practice too, is these presentation skills where you're actually sharing the information without reading it word for word. So these are some, and that's not something that's going to come right away. So this might be after you've taken a few courses that have these audio and video components. You might be able to do some of these brainstorming maps to help you not just read word for word off a piece of paper. So one of the things that you could use is, especially if you're creative, this is definitely not something that I would gravitate towards, but I know other people might. So there's a thing called a mind map, or kind of clustering. So you're just, it gives you the opportunity to be creative and kind of draw out your thoughts and your ideas. So your main idea is in the middle, and then you have, all the topics that you want to touch on around it. So if that's something that is helpful to you visually, you could write up, maybe your discussion board post or your journal or your assignment in that way, and have that in front of you when you're recording. There's also the bullet method, which is one of my preferences. So I have notes in front of me with keywords that I know I want to touch on. And then, with practice, I know that I can share the information that I want to convey to everybody without having to read it word for word. And then Post-it notes, I was actually sharing with the presenters before we got started. That is who I am at my core, is a Post-it note person. And I just have notes everywhere. I mean, all over my computer. But if I'm giving a presentation, or I'm leading a meeting or whatever it might be, I'll just have the main ideas written on a Post-it note, and I'll have it on my computer, just so that I don't lose track of those things, and making sure that I hit on those key ideas. So that's something that might be helpful too, if you're doing a short recording and you want to make sure that you don't forget things. A Post-it note might help. And the other thing I would say too is, again, we're not expecting perfection. So we don't expect people to record and re-record. Do your first, do it one time, and it is what it is. And I think that also really kind of shows who you are. And then you can learn from it and figure out what you want to do differently the next time. So I'm just going to go over some really quick tips that can help with the quality of your videos, and some of these things people aren't even aware of. And this first one is new. So we now have virtual backgrounds that are made specifically for you guys as students. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you guys click on that link, and let me know as a student if you're not able to click on that, but you should be able to click on that. And then it opens up to all different options of PG backgrounds that you guys can use in, like, a Google Meet, in Zoom for seminar. What you have to do is, if you look at each of those images, there's 3 dots next to the name of the background. If you click on the 3 dots and then click on download, it will download the background to your computer. So that's the first thing you have to do. So if you guys will do that, for those of you that are interested in using a virtual background, download it to your computer. And then when we have you guys get on camera at the very end, you can practice putting the virtual background on. So I'm actually going to do it really quickly, just so I can show you guys the difference. So, and I'll tell you what I'm doing, so that this might help you guys when you get on camera. So at the bottom of the Google Meet, there's a camera, a video camera. So if you click on that and then look over at the right, there is, it says apply visual. Well, there's an image with a person, like a profile picture. If you click on that, it says apply visual effects. So I'm going to click on that. And then if you scroll down, it says blur and personal backgrounds. And then there's an image with a plus sign. If you click on that, then you can select the background that you downloaded. And I know I'm doing this quick, but we'll help you guys at the end. So I'm just going to click on one. So there's the virtual background. So now you can see the difference between using it and not using it. So I'm going to take it off for now. You're welcome. So like I mentioned, virtual backgrounds you can obviously use in Google Meet. I'm not sure how often you guys use Google Meet as students, but I know you use Zoom for seminars. So the next time you go into Zoom, if you want to use a virtual background, you can. I I know you guys know, like we know, if you're doing a seminar at night, you have kids, you have family, you have pets. I feel like I never know where. I have 3 boys. I never know if I'm teaching a seminar where I'm going to be, because it depends on which room is the quietest. So I have held seminar. I have a son who has a loft bed, and I have I've held seminar underneath his loft bed before, and it is the weirdest. So I always just put a virtual background on, and nobody has any idea. So the virtual backgrounds can be extremely helpful to just cover anything that's going on in the background. So hopefully, if you guys have questions about those at the end, we'll be happy to help you with those. The only downside at the moment, we use Kaltura in the classroom for recording. As you guys know, if you're in human services, that's how you guys record videos for the discussion board and assignments. And right now you cannot use a virtual background in Kaltura, but we're working on getting that fixed. So when that happens, we'll let you know. So for right now, this is really just for seminars. If you don't have a virtual background, what types of things do you guys consider if you're getting on camera during seminar? Are there things you think about in terms of what's behind you? Yeah, telling people not to walk behind you, because of course that's when they're going to do it, or that's when your kids are going to come visit, or, you know, your cat or your dog is going to come visit. So trying to not have interruptions like that. Yeah. And I will also say to you guys, like, I don't care if I see kids during seminar and at all. And I feel like most of us are probably the same way. So don't let that stop you. Is that a question? So for right now, you can't use a virtual background in Kaltura, but we're working on fixing that. So as soon as we are able to do that, I know that all of us will share the word with students. Hopefully it'll be soon. So with your background, I would just say, you know, you want to have a space that's not overly cluttered. But if it is, that's okay. You know, you want to be in a space that's not overly distracting, because the focus should be on you. I think that's the bottom line, is that you want to make sure that you're the focus and the focal point. I've had students do a lot of creative things in terms of like using either a curtain or a sheet, you know, kind of positioning themselves so they're behind a neutral background. And that's great. But if you're not able to do that, it's fine. You know, the bottom line is we want you to create the video. And if you're struggling with having, you know, the background that you want to have, that's okay. You know, and there are some tricks and tips that we can help with. And I would just encourage you to reach out to your professor too, if you have questions about that. So that's the virtual backgrounds. Lighting is huge, can make a huge difference when you're doing video recordings, or if you're on camera in Zoom. So these are just some tips if it's during the day, to position yourself facing a window instead of having it behind you. If it's behind you, as you can see in these images, the light is what you're seeing instead of your face. If the light's in front of you, it's going to be a much brighter image. And again, you're going to be the focus of the video. One of the things that I purchased, which has been extremely helpful, is this little light that just sits on my computer. So I'm going to turn it off. So and I have another light behind me. But you can see how much darker it was. And it just clips. It was $10. It clips right on my computer. And it makes a huge difference. Especially if I'm in a room that's a little bit darker than this one, then it's extremely helpful. So those are things that, you know, they're not expensive. You can also use the flashlight on your phone and just prop it up against your computer. That can make a huge difference too. And then sound, pretty much anytime I get on a call or do a video, I use my headphones, just because you never know. Even if my kids aren't in the house, it never fails that, you know, there's a noise in the house, or my phone rings, or, you know, there's all sorts of noises that could potentially happen. So I have found that headphones are super helpful. I have recorded videos and I've touched the wire on the headphone the entire time, and that has produced a sound. So just be careful if you have a cord that you're not playing with it. If you don't have a microphone or a headset, just, you know, try to record in a room where you can close the door. And then I would also say too, again, don't feel like you have to re-record if you get background noise or if there's kids or dogs barking. We know that that's going to happen, and it's fine. It's just part of doing this. Do you guys have any questions about any of those tips? Okay. All right, I am going to pass it to Dr. Lifebridge to talk about some tech issues.
Thank you. All right, so we know that even getting to the point of doing the recordings can sometimes be challenging. So I just wanted to talk about some ways to address these tech issues before you get to the point of having to reach out to tech support. So one thing to be mindful of is that while Kaltura is the embedded tool within the course room, or Brightspace rather, you can utilize other tools to do your audio or video recordings. So that can be your phone, QuickTime, the Windows camera, or the voice recorder on your phone. And I'm going to show you how to do the recording on an iPhone in the next slide, the steps that you can use for that. And then also too, you all have access to the Pulse app. So through the Pulse app, you can also upload your audio or video recordings there. So if you do the recordings via your phone, you don't have to upload them to your computer and then try to do it another way. You can do it directly through the Pulse app. Another thing to be mindful of, and I think you all are made aware during your orientation, is that Chromebooks are not typically compatible with Kaltura. So Google Chrome and Kaltura have some known compatibility issues. So you may, encounter some challenges when you are doing your recordings through Kaltura. So you might want to use a different browser like Firefox or Edge to kind of eliminate some of those challenges between Kaltura and Google Chrome. And then sometimes it's just as simple as refreshing your browser or restarting your computer. So this can help resolve any glitches or clear some files and free up any space that may be hindering your functionality. And so it's a quick step to do before, again, you have to reach out to tech support. Another thing is with the captions that are generated when you upload your videos, those are done automatically. And so just be mindful that they do sometimes take a while to generate. So don't feel like you have to sit there and wait for the captions to upload. You can go on and do other tasks, but you do want to make sure that you are including the captions with your audio and video presentation. So they're a great way to help enhance engagement and comprehension. So sometimes, again, we know there may be distractions in the background, so we may not be able to hear you as clearly, or the audio may just be a little bit low. So having that text as an alternative resource can be helpful too. And then also thinking about your peers or instructors who may have some hearing challenges, being able to just read that text in addition to having the audio or video component can be helpful too. And then lastly, again, if it comes down to you've tried all these things and you're still having issues with being able to upload your piece, then you can reach out to tech support and you can reach them via email or telephone. All right, I know that this is a little bit hard to see, so I'll just go over these steps. You all will have access to this PowerPoint as well, but this just goes over how to do the recording on an iPhone. So all iPhones already come with the Voice Memos app. So to do an audio recording, you would just open that app up, then you would tap the red record button, you would do your recording and then tap that red record button again. And then in the right-hand corner, there's a small circle with 3 dots, and then you'll tap that dot, and you'll go on to select share, and you're going to either save the file or email it to yourself if you're going to upload it to your computer. And then once you've done that, you can save it to your computer, or if you use a storage device, then you can store it there as well. All right, and then once you've done that, you're going to go back into the course room. You're going to go to more tools. Then you're going to select Kaltura My Media. You're going to go to Add New, and then you're going to do Media Upload. And then whatever you save the file as, you're going to upload it to the Kaltura that way. And then you can name it. If you want to add a description there, then you can do that as well. In the same way as you would if you use Kaltura to do the recording, the captions will automatically generate for you there as well. Again, it may take a few minutes before they're there, but you can still have the captions generated for you when you do it that way as well. All right, I hope that this recording will play, but this is just an example of a student who did an audio discussion board, and they did it very well, but they were also able to include citations and references, which is a requirement for the Human Services Department with our audio and video discussion board. So I'm just going to play it for you. It's very quick, but just to give you an idea of what we're looking for. And let me know if you all are able to hear it.
I might have to, it's
Okay.
not gonna, okay.
Welcome to my Unit 7 audio discussion post. The serious illness I will be discussing is chronic pain. According to WebMD, pain is the body's way of signaling an illness or injury, warning us something is wrong. Normally, the pain goes away once the body heals, but for many people, the pain lasts for months or longer, which is called chronic pain. The ongoing pain can affect your emotional and physical health. Chronic pain can be managed with interventions like pain management, physical therapy, and counseling. The role of the caretaker is to provide support and assistance to individuals with chronic pain, helping them with daily activities and supporting their treatment plans. Signs that a caretaker may need crisis intervention services include feeling overwhelmed, experiencing burnout, and showing symptoms of depression and anxiety. A human service professional can recommend support groups, counseling, and assistance to help caretakers manage their stress and well-being. Individuals with disabilities, including those with chronic pain, face greater risk for crisis due to their physical, emotional, and social challenges. Creating a supportive environment, providing access to mental health services, and establishing a strong social support network are important in helping them handle difficult situations and maintaining stability. The information in this discussion is from our textbook, A Guide to Crisis Intervention 2018, as well as the WebMD website. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Right. So just to highlight a couple of things that the student did well. Again, we see that she referenced the information within her post. We can see that she has the captions here. So again, we were able to hear her say it, and we were also able to see it in the captions part. And then in the body of that discussion board post, she did include her reference list. And I know you all don't see the questions that she responded to, but she did respond to all parts of the prompt. And she was able to articulate her thoughts clearly and concisely, and she was able to do it in a nice time frame. So we know that sometimes you all have a lot to say, but we want to make sure that posts do not exceed 5 minutes. So the student did that in, I think, a little under 2 minutes, and it didn't seem like she was rushing. You know, she took pauses throughout, and the information was delivered clearly. And like I said, she did respond to all parts of the prompt. And another thing that I wanted to highlight with this student, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she was worried about her New Orleans accent and how it will be received. And as we said a couple of times throughout the night, we want you all to show up as your authentic self. So don't feel like you have to alter your tone in any way. We want to see and hear you all in your true essence. So show up as such and don't focus on those minute issues. We encourage you all to be yourselves as much as possible. And now I'll pass it along to Dr. Simons.
Welcome to my Unit 7 audio discussion post.
Okay, there we go. All right. So we would like to invite you to practice by getting on camera and just maybe seeing how comfortable you feel and oh, great, excellent. And maybe even trying out a virtual background that you just downloaded. So if you would like to, we would love for you guys to get on camera. And this would also be a great opportunity for you to ask questions or just, talk about anything that maybe concerns you. We would love to address that in the time that we have left. Absolutely. Yes. If you need help with virtual backgrounds, let us know. I'm actually, the virtual background that I have right now, I think was one of the ones that is on the list that from the link that we gave you guys earlier. So it's my favorite because it's polka dots. So I really am entertained by it. So feel free to I went through all of them, and so feel free to look around at all of them and pick one that just kind of speaks to you. Okay, camera doesn't function. Is that a known issue, or is that something that has happened just right now? All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for coming. Absolutely. Oh, noticed it days ago. Right. So we did put that in the link in the chat. If I don't know,
I'll put it back in there.
Okay. Yeah, there it is again. And I think there's at least 4 or 5 there, because I went through each one, and they're all good. Oh, Brian, that looks nice. That's like a place I would like to be. So, yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's new. Yeah. Hi. Hello. We are so glad to see you. So do you guys, I know we said psychology, but do any of you have any experience with audio or video assignments if you're not in human services? Has anybody ever done that in your classes? You have? And it may not. I know for me, when I first had to get on video, I was very anxious. So I shared a lot of the same qualities that we talked about a little bit earlier. I was very anxious about it. But I will say, and for me at least, the more you do it, the easier it is. I don't know if I would ever say it's easy, but it is easier. The more you do it, the more comfortable that you become with it. Communication course. Okay. And I did talk with some communication professors at the conference, and they were saying that they loved audio and video assignments as well. So, hi, Ray. How are you? It's so good to see you. There's Brian. Hi, Brian. Excellent. I love it. I love all the people getting on camera. That's awesome. Any questions? Do you guys have any questions? Any questions, any concerns, or even any tips for things that work for you that you feel like are helpful for you?
Dr. Simon, is it okay if I share something really quick? It just happened to me yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. I have a fairly newer laptop, and my camera was not working on, it's like it crashed. Like it wasn't working on anything. My audio wasn't working. It was awful. I called PG's IT. They were wonderful. They're always wonderful. And we just couldn't figure it out. And they recommended that I call my actual laptop company tech people. And I called them, and I am not tech savvy, but I called them, and basically something in my driver was not aligned with the camera settings. I don't even know, but it was amazing. In like 10 minutes, they accessed my computer and fixed it all. So I guess if all else fails, IT through Purdue, they've always been able to figure things out for me. But if nothing else is working, I do recommend maybe calling the company. They should have an IT department. I didn't even know that. I just found this out. And they resolved it in 10 minutes. It was great. But I had been on the phone for hours before that. So I wish I had done that sooner.
Yes, that I know it can be so frustrating. And so, yeah, just kind of knowing those strategies and learning things like that, hopefully it would not happen again, but definitely if it did, you would have that knowledge and maybe could address that even faster. Hello. Glad to see you guys.
Dr. Simon, I was going to ask, is it Tyreka? Would you mind telling us about the video resume? Are you looking for to unmute yourself? It should be down at the bottom, all the way over to the left, the microphone. Just click on it. There you go. Whoop, there. Yep.
The video resume was very nerve-wracking. When I said I had no clue what to do, but it was good. And once I turned it in, I was like, oh my gosh! Like I asked everybody, like my boss, how he told me, he's like, if you ever need help, just let me know. I go to him. I was like, hey, can you help me with a video resume? He goes, yeah, no, I'm old school. I've never done one. I was like, thanks a lot. But I ended up getting a 99 on it. So it was pretty cool to read my resume, but I had to make sure that my paper was like on my laptop so I can make sure I could hit every point and everything. I stumbled a few times, messed up some words, but I kept it moving. And so I was, like I said, oh well, it is what it is. Because if I recorded
That's
it again,
awesome.
the more.
That's awesome. What course was that for?
I didn't remember which criminal justice course it was for.
Oh, criminal justice. Okay.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Because
Awesome.
I will be, I'm glad because it has helped me, and I will be finished November 26th. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm ready. So
That's awesome. Congratulations.
thank you.
That's so exciting. I was just thinking too, we got some quotes from students about how doing video has helped them. And a recent graduate is now, and Dr. Haight or Professor Haight, correct me if I'm wrong with this quote, but she graduated and I think immediately got a job as a caseworker, and all of her meetings, her first meetings were video meetings. And so she immediately had to put all this practice that she had been doing in the classrooms to use. And it really helped her, which was really cool to hear about. So you will definitely use it no matter what you end up doing. Anybody else want to get on microphone?
Hi, Ray. You said you're still trying to figure out the background. Did you download it from the link? Oh, okay. Well, thanks for.
Yeah, hello. Yep, I did download it from the link, but I don't see an option for me to change my background. So I'm not sure if maybe because I'm on my phone, so it's not saved somewhere where it's reading it or what's happening.
I will pass that off to if someone knows, because I don't think I've ever used the phone for Google Meet. So that might be out of my area of knowledge.
And Ray, I'm not sure either off the top of my head, but I can find instructions and email it to you. Would that help? So you'll know how to do it? Okay.
That sounds great.
Can you put your email in the chat? Are you
Sure.
able to do that? Okay, that would be awesome. And then I'll do that tomorrow.
Yep, I can do that.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
I think my question is probably a little pedestrian, but somebody might have an answer. So I'm looking at the background I chose, and it has Purdue Global, but it's backwards. Does anybody know how to turn it around?
Great question. Actually, when we look at it, it looks just fine. So it's not backwards. It's only backwards for you. And so when we see it, it's exactly the way that it should be.
And that's my fault. I was supposed to say that during my part and I totally forgot because I just figured that out. I was in a meeting and I was like, why is my background backwards? But it's right to everybody else. So just likes to confuse us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I definitely, when I first did it, I would have thought that I had done something wrong if I hadn't heard that. So I would have asked that very same question. So yeah, it's a good question. Absolutely. All right. Well, I know it is 9 o'clock. And so does anybody else have any questions or concerns or thoughts or anything? All right. Well, I just want to, and I know this from I speak for all of us, but you guys feel free to hop on as well. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing this time with us. I hope that it's been helpful for you, and I hope that it's given you some tools that you can take forward and use in your classes and in your career field. So, does anybody else have anything any closing remarks?
No, thank you all for being here. This is great.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
And you should all get the PowerPoint with our email addresses too. So if you guys think of any questions, you can always reach out to us.
All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great night and a great rest of your week. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.